Welcome back to the Fab Forums. On last week's episode, I started on the Firewall for the Bibbster. On this week's episode, I want to finish it up, get the motor back in here. So a lot going on this week, fellas. Been working on the goat. Got some upgrades I want to do to that thing. Just little stuff, nothing really worth filming. Today though, I want to finish up the Firewall. Last week I kind of worked on that lower section. And this week I'm gonna do the upper section, and the plans are, or my idea is, to do some kind of quilting up top. So I'm gonna put some kind of design in that top section just to make it, just to give it a little pizzazz. But I think what I wanna do is, most people that quilt sheet metal, like this, you see those, see it looks like quilting, right? Like if you were to sew in some padded fabric on these lines, that's kind of what it looked like. But I think what I want to do is kind of flip that on its head and do like reverse quilting. So I want the lines to kind of stick out. So I'll start off by basically cutting this upper piece. I've already got the template for it. The template itself is kind of oddly shaped. So it's smaller on this side than it is on that side. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it mirrored. So I'll just bend it right in the middle, make it mirrored, make it kind of match each side. It'll just have more overhang on one side than the other as far as the panels go, but it'll look even. And then we'll bead roll it, quilt it, see if we can't get that thing on the car. So you can see this piece that I make up here will actually come down and cover up this seam. So I'll kind of roll that thing in, and then I don't know, I may make it to where the body comes off with this piece staying here, because it'll be all attached here at some point. Or I may actually like rivet it on, and then if I ever want to take the body off, I can just drill the rivets out and then the body can come off. It'll definitely be in two pieces though. pretty happy with that. Obviously, it's gonna take some contouring around some of these edges, and probably gonna go back and maybe roll this flange on the bottom under. Just made some lines to kind of guide me as far as rivets go, but I don't even know that I'm gonna rivet it, to be honest with you. I may actually just weld this thing solid and make it look like, clean it up, make it look like it was an original panel on this piece. I do plan to make some new pieces that kind of come out here. So I'm gonna leave this kind of hanging out like it is. We'll roll this piece under. Initially I was gonna maybe quilt this bottom section as well, but with the motor in here, it's gonna cover up almost all of it. When you got the brake master cylinder here, I mean, it's gonna cover up almost all of this, and so I just figured, as far as decorative pieces go, this will be the only one that I use. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this back off. We'll kind of roll this bottom edge, maybe clean this up a little bit, clean this panel up, go ahead and tack this thing in several spots, and then get it back together. Starting to look a little better, not so rough. One of the things I will do when we get over here to the bead roller is kind of show you how I made this quilted pattern. I mean, I showed it, but I didn't really explain it. So on this particular piece here, this is really close to what you traditionally see as a quilted pattern. The only thing I did different is I reversed it. So normally what you see is the pattern goes in like that. So the lines themselves are in, and then the quilted portion pops out. And that's where you get the quilted from. It almost looks like you took some fabric with some padding, and then you took a sewing machine and actually sewed these lines in there, and that's where you get that quilted pattern. I want to mix it up a little bit, and I do like the way that this looks reversed, where these things kind of pop out at you. So I wanted to try that out. I figured the worst case, if I didn't like it, I could just make another panel that looks like that. But I like it this way, just a little bit different. So the way that I do that is with this tipping die. And you could actually use a couple different things, but basically this is just a sharp die. It's got a sharp point on it. This is actually made of a plastic, but I mean, you could use like an art step die. So this is an art step die that I've got. And it's just got, this one's made of metal, and it just has a nice rounded edge on it that you could basically use to make this pattern. I like to use this one. It doesn't scuff it as bad, although this one's not really made to do metal. And then on the bottom, this is a very soft rubber wheel. Actually, probably, it works great for this. I'd actually wished I had a harder one, and I may buy one for other stuff, but for this particular technique, this wheel is perfect. And the reason being is because you're actually having to roll back over parts that you've already done. And if this bottom wheel was hard, it would just flatten out the other marks that you made basically when you rolled over them. So, you know, as you're rolling this one, you would basically negate this one and that one if this wheel is hard. The fact that it's soft though, you can roll this in there and it doesn't mess with these, so on and so forth all the way down the line. So I think what I want to do, like I said before, is I want to roll this down a little bit. Just the rolling of this thing has caused this thing to kind of come up some, and so I figured if I can put this a little bit of radius on that, it may look better. And what I want to use to do that is some dies like these. So these dies are made to kind of match up. We can see that. Let's see if we can get a camera to focus. Yeah, so these dies are kind of made to match up, and they have a little roll in the center of them. I've got ones with different radiuses. We don't want to get too over the top. Hopefully you can kind of see that thing, and they meet right up. So hopefully I can just put these in here, kind of roll that edge in there. It's gonna give it just a little bit of a taper and straighten that this panel out as well. When I say this thing's soft, I mean, it's pretty soft. The one thing I know that I want to do is take it slow on this. So we don't want to try to like overdo this. So most likely what's going to happen is behind this panel, I'll just go through and spray some weld-through primer on the original body, just kind of keep it from rusting, and go through and just tack this thing. Kind of mold it, tack it, mold it, tack it. Over here, tack it, you know, clean this edge up. And just kind of make it look like it was almost made like that. From Ford originally. Alright, here we go. So everything is basically the way I want it. Cleaned up, tacked in, kind of ground away the stuff I didn't want right now. And got everything wiped down. So I just took some acetone, kind of wiped everything down. Now what I'm going to do, if you haven't seen it before, I've talked about it a lot on the channel, but I'm going to put some of this stuff on there. It's called shark hide. This is like my go-to stuff. If you're a long-term viewer of the channel, Jeb Greenstone at Cutworm Specialties turned me on that stuff, and it's the bomb. And that's the idea. This whole thing will actually be protected by shark hide. Most of the chromoly is already protected. I actually put a clear on there initially, but what I'll probably end up doing is scuffing or sanding all that off and shark hide the whole thing. The beauty of this, as I add pieces and it kind of burns away that shark hide, I can scuff it, put more on there, and you can't even tell where it used to be compared to where the new stuff is. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna shark hide this whole piece, kind of preserve it for now until I do more stuff. The one thing you do want to do on this with this stuff is any cosmetic areas that you want to look good, you kind of want to do them in all in one stroke. This stuff is pretty thick, and if you like just kind of like do like this, you'll see kind of see where it was, where you brushed it on. The thing I really love about this entire build is that I have the ability to really just show how it was created. So for instance, I mean, I may come in here and clean up some of this stuff, but I mean, I like that it's got, you know, these little places where I welded and then ground it away. Kind of shows the character, if you will, of the build, but it just shows how it was done, how, you know, some of the steps that it took to do it. It's just not a perfect finished product. I want to see the work. I mean, this whole thing is about the work for me. I mean, obviously, I'll probably do like a finished piece that kind of breaks over this edge, so you won't see none of this. And I'll probably end up riveting it too, so it's all riveted together. But you know, some of this stuff I don't plan on hiding. I plan on just letting it roll. Like I said, I like the idea of being able to see everything, even the welds. I mean, I've mentioned in the past, even a lot of the welds and stuff, you know, if I make a little mistake or something, as long as it's not gonna compromise the chassis, I just leave it. I want you to see that. I don't want to hide it. I like that. It's almost like I mean, obviously it's a documentation for myself of this, but a lot of those little things, it's like a book. I can go back and look through it when as I see it, I'm like, yeah, I remember that. I remember that little thing, or I dipped the tungsten right here, or when I was, you know, I fought this panel, I was trying to bend this thing and it was giving me a hard time and it's got this little crease in it, or, you know, whatever. Whatever the case may be, I'll have all that. I don't think there's really enough of that going on this day and age. You know, everybody wants to paint everything and hide all the work. Not saying that I disrespect that kind of work. I mean, there's a lot that goes on in making something look perfect as well. But a lot of times it's so perfect that it just looks like it popped out of a mold, you know? Like you just, you know, got it out of a box. You don't see any of the work. You know there was a lot of work that went into it, or most people know that there was a lot of work that went into it, but you don't see it. Thing. All right, guys, there you go. Engine's back in. Firewall is looking pretty good. You can see where I've kind of rolled this under edge under a little bit. There is still a gap, which is by design, because the body itself still will be able to come off and this lower section will stay. So got all that in, got everything sealed up. May make another top. I'm not really happy with this. May do it out of aluminum, I don't know yet. And you can also see where I've left these edges off. I'm gonna make, at some point I'm gonna make something that kind of goes in here and ties back into the doors, but I'll have to wait for that. As you can see, the upper is off. Working on some stuff with that thing. Probably gonna pull the turbo housing off and get this thing coated before pits. Yeah, still got a lot to do before pits. Coat the turbo housing. I've got to finish weld some stuff. Got to get it shark hided. The entire chassis, all the aluminum, the seats, everything has to be cleaned, scuffed, and coated. The floorboards have to be re-scuffed and coated. Got you know, anywhere that I've had a little bit of rust pop through, I'm gonna go ahead and clean all that up. And I've only got 2 weeks. As far as fabrication goes, I kind of wanted to maybe put a top on it, even if it's just a temporary piece, like in the process piece. But I think I want to try to do that before pits. And I got to finish up this rear section. So I've just kind of got it mocked up. The tubing is not done yet though. Still got some lower tubes that need to go in it. Some upper tubes. Yeah, needless to say, I got a lot of work to do. Still got to do some stuff for the trailer to get this thing ready to go. Still got some work that needs to be done on the goat to haul this thing up there. The goat's about done though. Just got a couple more little pieces that should be pretty easy. So anyway, as always, thank you for joining me. I'll see you guys next Friday with a Bibbster build video, and then maybe some stuff between now and Friday. Go do work, son.